Thank you everyone for attending this public workshop for the comprehensive plan for Riverhead. This comprehensive plan update represents a tremendous amount of work that has been done to date, as well as work that will be done over the next year. In this meeting, we hope to bring as many people together to talk about the issues that are facing the community, those issues having to do with housing, economic development, infrastructure, agriculture. There's so many issues that have changed in the last 20 years since the last comprehensive plan was done. Before we get to the important topic of the day, which is really talking about what it is that we're doing, as well as hearing from you, I wanted to introduce the supervisor, Supervisor Aguiar, to say a couple of words, and then we will get going and really hit the ground running. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see such a nice crowd here this morning. There's bagels in the back, and thank you for being here. I know Saturday when you all work and getting up early in the morning and trying to get here, and it takes a good part of your day, but this is critical. This is going to be our plan. It's going to be our roadmap for the future. We need your input, and every input that we get is documented, and there are going to be some other meetings. I did see the PowerPoint last night that was produced. It looks like they're on their way. We have not lost a step or skipped a step in the process. As you know, there was a prior contract that I was supposed to deliver, have deliverables that was impossible, and now we moved on, and it's going to be a good day for Riverhead, and there'll be a few more of these meetings, and I was told this morning by our contractors, our job is to keep the public informed constantly. So we're going to start getting updates, and good luck, and I want to be part of the workshops. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to pause just for a quick second. Okay, all right, we're done. All right, so what are we going to do today? So first we're going to give a presentation. We're going to try to be as brief as possible. There's a lot of material to go through. What we wanted to do is summary basically what we've learned in the past couple of months. Our firm started on this project in January, but we know that the comprehensive plan process started in 2020. So there really is a lot of work for us to build upon. We want to give you a summary of those issues. Then we want to bring you to roundtable discussions. The idea that people can talk amongst themselves with the moderator and our team to really talk about the issues. It's the best way to really hear from the directors. Once we do roundtable discussions, we're going to come back and report back to the wider group so that everyone can hear what was said in each of those meetings. So who are we? Here we are. We're the chairman. My name is Noah Levine. I'm the principal in charge of this project. We were a consultant team that was hired to continue the comprehensive plan process. We worked with a variety of communities on the East End, Long Island, preparation of comprehensive plans. This is really what we do, essentially. You can see here our core team, as well as the resources that we bring to the table. We're very deep, and we can bring people to kind of meet certain challenges and needs as appropriate. We also have on our team LKMA. So we have Ray DiBiase and Ben Corrado. They were involved in the entire effort. So we have some continuity for transportation infrastructure. From our team today, we have myself, Frank Fish, Emily Luker, and Suzanne Goldberg, who's not on here. Really, we're a big part of the core team. We're also, this plan is also guided by a steering committee who we meet with regularly this monthly. And so the point of the steering committee really is just to help provide a variety of opinions from different stakeholders in the community. So we have town officials, elected officials, civic leaders, department heads, really a diversity of talents to help us really test ideas with them first before we bring them to the wider community. And it's really an important part of the process. This is really just to have a sounding board. So you can see here the role, as I said, is to really plan for these outreach activities, help guide the process so that we can come to you with an informed set of ideas and then make sure that we stay on task. We'll also be forming working groups later on in the process to test the recommendations as they're developed, to make sure that, for example, if we make a recommendation for having to do with infrastructure, we meet with those department heads that will really be in charge of implementing those recommendations. So what is a comprehensive plan? Essentially, a comprehensive plan is a 10-year document. It's encouraged that every community have one. It is an expression of the community's shared vision. So where do you want it to be in the next 10 years? It also lays a policy guide for plans, capital budget decisions, and the most important thing really are zoning decisions. Because zoning, which really determines how land could be developed in the future, must be based on a quote-unquote well-reasoned plan, which a comprehensive plan is. So there are other things, that it really provides direction on, but zoning is one of the most important things. It also provides a to-do list to track those implementation goals. And our role as a consultant team is really to identify not just projects that the town can do, but identify realistic timeframes, kind of an idea for budget and who's responsible, so that you can track progress year to year. So this does become an important document that doesn't sit on a shelf. As you may or may not know, the last plan was adopted in 2003. That's your acting plan. Obviously, a lot has happened in the last 20 years. There's been a lot of development. Housing issues have changed. There's so many issues that are different than they were in 2023. While it is really, in some ways, a lot of things haven't changed, many have. And so it's our role really to kind of update and create a new vision based on where the head is today. This timeline is too difficult to read. Kind of summarize it. Essentially, the main point here I want to show is that we want to make sure that we stay on task and meet our deliverables when we set. So this timeline really is more for us to help keep track of tasks month by month. It's important for us to finish the process in the review on timeline just as important as it is for the town. But to give you a sense of what we are expecting to do in the next year or so, this spring we have a public workshop, stakeholder meetings. We'll be meeting with representatives from all of the various boards and committees in the town that are already set up, so we can use those as a resource. We are compiling summary reports of the work that has been completed previously. We'll talk about that shortly. In the summer, that's when we really kind of write a lot of the chapters, and we plan to do them one by one, deliver them to the town to really review, and those will be published online as working reports, so the community has an opportunity to review those before they are kind of in their kind of penultimate stage and becomes more formal. So we want to make sure that there's adequate review for those. We'll have a second public workshop in the fall. We're also thinking about other types of online outreach, to be decided. Meanwhile, we'll be working on the seeker process, the environmental review, so that happens simultaneously with the development of the plan, and they can both conclude at the same time late winter, and the plan can hopefully be adopted, and this is the process will be concluded. We encourage everyone to visit the comprehensive plan website. It just has a kind of stores a lot of information there. There's a lot of information from the prior effort between 2020 and 2022. And for those of you that don't know, there was a prior effort that worked on the plan that did some outreach, that did a number of reports. We want to make sure that information is not lost. So we've been working really from that as a starting point. We read through all of those materials, we read through the research that was done and the outreach that was done, and it's all there. Also, the documents that we produced were posted there, as well as summaries of meetings such as this one. The prior outreach included a variety of activities, stakeholder meetings. There was a Hamlet-focused meetings, work sessions, various meetings. I think there were, we heard comments that maybe the turnout wasn't as good as we would have liked. So this is why we're doing kind of a renewed effort to really make sure that you all really have a voice and you know about what's going on. So it's really just a starting point for us, it's being clear, but it is helpful to see the work that has been done. In addition to that, the town has done a lot of other planning work. Many of these projects have involved a public outreach component. The DRI was recently completed. The Downtown Revitalization Initiative. As many of you know, that process will lead to $10 million of investment in grants from the state in addition to private funding that's going to go to the downtown. So a lot of changes are projected to the downtown. There's a pattern book that was designed to help guide development, plans for the town square, plans for the transit-oriented development area. So there's really a lot happening that we can build upon. So we're really lucky and fortunate to have all that work that's been done before. This just kind of shows, our approach to this phase now. We've developed a summary report which really compiles a lot of that work that was done by AKRF between 2020 and 2022. The prior documents, such as what I just mentioned, into this summary report. And the summary report isn't, the plan per se. It's just kind of just helping to synthesize all that information in one document. And it's kind of a seed from where to start. And it also shows maybe areas where we don't have information where we need to really dive in further. After that, we'll develop kind of a vision and goals, which will be updated from the 2023 plan, combined with what we understand today, and then we'll start working on the chapters. So this summary report, we have a working draft. We just are kind of polishing a couple of things that we will post it online in the next week or so. For those of you that left your email address at the front, we can publish an update so that everyone knows when it's posted live. Again, we do indicate in the document areas where we understand further analysis is needed. So it's not a final document, but it's kind of an interim report. So we move on to just talking about issues and opportunities, really what we've learned in the process. I'll start with housing and then I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues. With regard to housing, as many of you know, the population on the East End has grown tremendously in the last 20 years. And we talk about the 20 years because it's a convenient time period both from the census standpoint, but it's also when you do the last comprehensive census. So the town grew approximately 30% in the last 20 years, which is more than Suffolk County as a whole. Suffolk County only grew 11%. So there's been a lot of growth. And according to NIMTIC, the population growth is projected to continue, not at the same rate, but is projected to continue into 2040. Much like the rest of Long Island, the population is aging, meaning the older population is growing and there's not growth in the same populations of younger adults. This is kind of an issue throughout Long Island, but it's more substantial in Riverhead as a whole. And there's a decline in the younger population, not just school-age children, but young adults in their 20s. Riverhead has become significantly more diverse. The minority population has increased over 100% in the last 20 years, and the Hispanic population increased 5 times during that period. It's notable that the Black population has declined about 23% during that period as well. And with regard to housing growth, growth has been strong. The number of units in the town grew by over 30%, which is higher than the growth in Suffolk County. And a lot of that growth has been in single-family, both attached and detached homes, although there has been growth in 2-family, 3 to 4 families, and multi-family homes. We do understand that mobile homes and manufacturing homes do make up a substantial component of the housing share. And while there has been growth in multi-family homes, that growth has been at a slower rate than single-family homes. However, we do anticipate a significant amount of new development downtown. Frank will talk a little bit more about that when we get to the economic development section. Housing, when we're talking about housing values did go up, particularly during COVID, as a lot of people moved out to the suburbs. Things have leveled off somewhat. The market was generally volatile during the COVID period. As you can see on the top right, the chart shows that the median housing value is slightly less than that of Suffolk County as a whole, at just under $370,000. And Riverhead has much more housing at kind of a slightly lower market value. And even the rentals that are in the town of Riverhead tend to be more affordable, or naturally affordable, as we like to say, to the workforce populations. And when we say workforce, we mean people who are making up to 130% of their median income. And so, this has implications when it comes time when we talk about affordable housing. But Riverhead is generally lower rents compared to the county. That being said, about half of renters spend over 30% of their income on housing costs, which means that they are quote-unquote rent burdens. So when talking about affordable housing, a lot of this information comes from the ARF's housing trends market report that we looked at, but it shows that the town really does provide more than its fair share of affordable housing compared to other East End towns. Riverhead had, at the time that study was done, about 884 units of affordable income restricted units compared to 504 in other East End towns. And so, Riverhead has been the workforce alternative for the East End. And, we're kind of looking at that data to see, how much more housing is needed. There still is a regional affordable housing need. But the town is kind of looking at, what the appropriate approach is moving forward. Where should the efforts be focused? The Riverhead also does have a significant inventory of age-restricted housing, but meanwhile, there is still a need for age-restricted housing as the population of older residents is growing. What we heard, or what we learned from prior outreach activities, was that there was support for increased market rate homes, including home ownership opportunities, particularly for young people, hopefully to invest in the community and build wealth, homes in the downtown area to support local businesses, small single-family units with 2 or 3 bedrooms that kind of could be sort of starter home opportunities, and then other low-maintenance options such as rentals and condo apartments. Those might be more, desirable for those that are looking to kind of move out of their single-family homes and age in place. We also heard a need for kind of workforce housing or housing in kind of the middle tier at 130% of median income, assisted living developments, and senior housing. We also heard about a number of other quality of life issues, such as overcrowded housing in some areas of the community, the saturation of transitional and sober housing, particularly in the downtown, the concern about the unhoused population, and lack of programs and services for that community, or for those that are unhoused, and then also concerns about ongoing construction quality and sustainability and redesign of new developments. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Frank Fish to talk about economic development and commercial and industrial uses.
Thank you, Bill. Economic development, key issue for the town, and we're going to try to balance economic development in terms of tax base, in terms of jobs, but also with preservation of quality of life for the community. But starting with these trends in jobs, you can see there are 18,000 jobs in the town. 20% of them are held by residents, which is not unusual. And there's much commutation into the town. The job growth here has been fairly strong, and the employment rate is about, you can see there, almost 95%. But there is a need to keep job growth, also particularly in higher paying jobs. A big part of the job base here is more modest salaries, and so as much as we can get diversity in the job picture, that would be a goal. In terms of assets, however, you've got, we think, some tremendous assets. One of them, waterfront. As you know, there's a lot of development that's proposed and has happened. We think the DRI project, which is downtown investment, money from the state that we covered earlier, is very important. You see here a rendering of Riverhead Town Square, which is proposed, and then some new housing development in downtown. So downtown is an asset. We've got a significant public realm improvements that are planned. However, we've got a concern, and concerns that are expressed in the surveys that we're taking about the viability of downtown businesses, quality of life issues, It's been pointed out to us that there's a significant amount, as Noah hinted at, of really sort of more lower income housing in the downtown. You become a little bit that focus for the East End. So we need to have a diversity of housing types. And we want to have that diversity so that we can improve the quality of life and then get pedestrian safety looked at in the downtown. And we need to look also at the fringe areas, not here in Main Street Center, but as you get into East Main Street and then West Main Street, as you go toward Kennedy. Then, very important is the relationship between Route 58 and downtown. And I think one of the key differences here is that we've got a very healthy Route 58. I think the vacancy rate is relatively strong. And even though it has had its ups and downs, it's relatively strong. And more people shop on Route 58, which should be expected. It's a huge shopping place, which is, you don't want, it's not appropriate to have a big Home Depot, that kind of auto-oriented taxpayer downtown. They belong on Route 58, and so there's a relationship between Route 58 and downtown. And then we're going to look at zoning guidance for improving architecture, landscaping along Route 58, and a potential for the mixed uses. We know that residential is not in favor in the surveys, although there may be one or two places where it may be approved. So we're also going to look at the industrial base. And we know in the industry, things have changed in the industrial marketplace. So we're going to look at things like high-speed warehousing and fulfillment centers. This doesn't mean that we're going to come out favoring these necessarily. We are going to look at flexibility in the zone. And one thing we're looking at is to limit that zoning and perhaps tighten it up for these industrial uses so that in terms of transportation impacts, we don't overwhelm the community in any way. So there's a balance between tax base, jobs, but also the impact on the community. And then the critical issue you can see there is FPL. To support FPL, it would need transportation improvements. So we'll look at that in terms of proper zoning to balance that again. So we're going to look at allowable densities and heights, look at if high-speed warehousing is appropriate, and if so, where, and then the permitting process for these buildings, including solar farms and vertical farming, which they're relatively new things. We've been out to see what you have. So we will look at those, but the look will be to tighten up things where necessary so we don't have disastrous impacts on growth, but also to try to keep the job base and the tax base. Then I'm going to just switch to agriculture, which is also a very, very important issue here, and that is to preserve the town's agricultural areas and rural character. I think there's widespread agreement on all the surveys on that. The public's expressed that. But there's different interpretations, as you can see there, preserving agricultural character. What does this mean? We're going to try to better define that, farmland, reuse, and open space preservation. And it's not just wine country, it's many other things to do with agriculture. But it includes that as well as the agritourism and agricultural events. How those are handled, and we know those are issues, but there will be an issue on open space and agriculture. In fact, there'll be a chapter on that. Each of these things that we're covering here, you know, we're covering houses and the chapters on in the plan. And then we're going to look at transfer development rights. We've been told, we've been working with the TDR committee, we've been told that it hasn't worked quite as well as the town would wish. We're going to look at slight changes possibly to the implementation of TDR. We do not want to overwhelm any particular community as being the receiving rights. In other words, TDR, what it means is transferring development rights to preserve agriculture. We've got to transfer that right somewhere. And we want to be careful where that's done and how much is done. And then the economics of the farming industry is important. We need to understand it, and we to recognize it. The survey respondents, you can see there, have been in favor of expanding agritourism events, but they also want controls on those. So we need to look at that. We need to look at the options for farmers. You see two different photographs here. We're not, we want to look at those. One shows you solar panels above agriculture, the other vertical, it's called vertical farming. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ray, who's going to cover transportation.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, so we've been involved in transportation from the beginning of the project in 2020. You gave us a lot of information at the first few meetings, so we had a pretty good handle on it. A lot of you have seen this already, but I'm going to go through it, and we develop afterwards as a table to talk about it. Of course, we know there's a lot of seasonal tourism-related traffic, both on Route 25 and Sound Avenue. We have some of the hot spots enumerated there, Florida and Maine. 25 and Edwards, which is starting to get rebuilt by the State Department of Transportation and widened significantly. Scheduled to be completed in 2025. They should be starting construction early next year. The County Road 105 at 25 intersection east of downtown, and then commercial corridor of County Road 58 general. So we know there's a need for more public transit options and a need for improved pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So we know in general that the roadways have available capacity, so we're talking about the length of the roadways within the town. But an exception, of course, is 25 based on the Epical development, which is undefined at this point, but it could result in a lot of widening and traffic signals on Route 25. Now we know there are need for localized improvements, widening at certain intersections, which I've already mentioned, changes to traffic control, safety improvements to reduce accidents where there are a lot of crashes, and enhance pedestrian and bicycle facilities. As Frank focused on County Road 58, we're going to talk about it too. We know there's been a significant development in the last 20 years. The county came through and provided a widening to add a lane in each direction. It was reconstructed in 2010. However, they did it within the existing available county right-of-way, so they weren't able to provide shoulders and other facilities such as for bicyclists. A long-term strategy includes shoulders, sidewalks, bus stops and shelters, and turn lanes wherever they are needed. Another thing we'd like to see is where we have multiple driveways in County Road 58, so you have cars turning in and out at each one of those, which is a potential for crashes at each of those locations. We'd like to see those driveways combined. Where there are two properties adjoining, we'd like to see a combination driveway at the center of those two properties so that both can use it, so that we can remove some driveways along County Road 58. Near-term improvements, I talked about access management, cross-access. So you'd like to be able to go from one facility to another without going back out on County Road 58 and having to turn again. Particularly when one of those facilities is on the corner of an intersection with a traffic signal. So the property which doesn't have a traffic signal right now could get a cross-access or a driveway to the adjacent property and use the traffic signal to more easily enter County Road 58. As we've already mentioned, agritourism brings a significant amount of traffic in the seasons that generate the traffic. Congestion is focused at key points, not on entire roadways in general. The public does not support corridor wide improvements on Sound Avenue, so this is specifically related to Sound Avenue. So initially we had floated, how about adding a lane in each direction on Sound Avenue with a center turn on it, which would handle the traffic. But because Sound Avenue was a historic and scenic corridor, that's contrary to the nature of the roadway. So we realized that we need to focus on key driveways during the high seasons, which have a lot of turn moving traffic going in and out, and adding some left turn lanes and things of that nature, those points, so that if a vehicle in front of you is making a left turn or the driveway has to wait because it's blocked the entire roadway from functioning. Talked about tree preservation as well, and we realized that this is a priority and we need a corridor study of the entire roadway in more detail for more more detail, but find the improvements that need to be made and hopefully get some funding and implement them in a fashion that's relatively quick. Bike facilities in general, both routes 24 and 25 have wide shoulders. We're talking about the Cal Trail. I drove by there this morning and people using it, which is a great place to get off the road and enjoy a path around the facility. The MTA has awarded a grant for first mile, last mile transit accessibility downtown for bikes. So bicycling to the train station, bicycling around downtown, that would be facilitated. Most town roads are widened for at least a bike route sign, not necessarily a bike lane. And we're going to be looking at a couple of things, investigating connection to the existing shared use path, which is an off-road path for pedestrians and bicyclists that extends right now, which is all the way to the river. It would be nice to connect that east into Riverhead so that you had the opportunity, if you want, to get on a bike and go all the way to Sisquoia, off the roadway in general. And we also want to coordinate a few bike lanes and routes to the Long Island extension to the Empire State Trail, which actually runs from New York City right now to Buffalo. This is a designated path for improvements to pedestrians and cyclists. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Emily.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Emily. I'm a planner at EFW Planning. And I'm going to talk about community facilities and cultural resources first. So scenic and historic resources and cultural facilities contribute greatly to the quality of life in Riverhead. So these are things that we want to take care of in the master plan. So these can be things like agricultural landscapes, scenic corridors, as we just discussed, also historic resources like this beautiful theater that we're meeting in today, and scenic waterfronts like the Peconic River that runs through Riverhead downtown. So in the past consultants' efforts, they talked to the Department of Parks and Recreation, and what they learned there was that a lot of participation in recreational programs declined during the pandemic, and they've been working to increase that participation in programming. Also in the prior public outreach efforts, we heard a lot about localized issues for parks in Riverhead. So some examples of that came out of the interactive map and the survey had to do with improving parking lots at parks and beaches, also improving access to beaches, and improving facilities that have been neglected throughout the town. There are also some opportunities to add some additional recreational facilities, perhaps in EPCAL, potentially on Route 58, so those are things we want to talk to you about more. Community facilities also include schools and medical facilities. So the Riverside Central School District does not just serve Riverhead's population, it also serves the population of neighboring communities. New York State has noted that the enrollments in the Riverhead School District increased from 2013 to 2020. The data here is showing that there is a slight decline after that. However, there is projected population growth, so we want to make sure that the school district has the capacity to support any additional students. Another issue is Southampton. Parts of Southampton are included in the school district, and they have plans for additional residential development, and we want to make sure that Riverhead and Southampton are talking to each other to make sure that any impacts on the school district are mitigated. Speaking of healthcare, you have the Northall Hospital here, and they serve not only Riverhead, but also other towns on the East End. They've been expanding substantially as the population grows here. As Noah mentioned earlier, it's an aging population, so demand for medical services for elderly people is increasing. And from talking to the hospital, we've learned that there is a need for attracting younger talent to the hospital to work here, and there's an issue with the lack of affordable housing for healthcare workers in Riverhead. also going to talk about sustainability and resilience. So here this is talking about renewable energy. New York State in 2019 passed a law where they set some very ambitious goals for increasing renewable energy throughout the state, and this includes having 70% renewable energy resources by 2030 and 100% zero emissions energy sources by 2040. They also have goals for solar, wind, and energy storage facilities. So we need to talk about potential locations where those are sited and the impacts they might have on the community. We need to prioritize safety, but we also need to balance these with the state goals and our environmental goals. So the town of Riverhead really prioritizes the preservation of its natural resources. These include things like the Pine Barrens region, tree coverage throughout the town, also the waterways, the Peconic River, and one of the major concerns here is water quality. So we have a very fragile water system here, and the town has many initiatives to deal with stormwater management and to reduce nitrogen pollution, and we want to keep forwarding those initiatives. Another thing that we need to do is prepare for climate change. Some of the impacts of climate change will be sea level rise and increased natural disasters. And this results in things like flooding along the Peconic River, erosion on the coast, and so we want to mitigate some of those effects. So we need to increase emergency preparedness and also make some physical, adjustments to our waterfront. So right now, Riverhead has an initiative along the Peconic River where they're looking at putting in flood walls and constructing berms, also adding new infrastructure to absorb excessive stormwater. Finally, we want to make sure that the plan includes strategies for making construction more sustainable, so some green building guidelines. We want to talk about electric vehicle infrastructure, so perhaps charging stations where those can be located, how to get funding for them, and again, solar. One of the major issues that we want to talk about in Riverhead and East End in general is waste management. So right now, Riverhead is spending a lot of money to ship their waste to the landfill in Brookhaven, but that landfill is going to close in 2024. So we want to make sure that we have a backup plan for how we're going to take care of that waste. It's very costly to ship it further out, and we also want to reduce waste in general. So we want to talk about innovative solutions there. Now I'm going to pass it back to Noah.
Great, thanks. So we know that was a lot of information. We know there's a lot of information to digest, so we thank you for being patient with us. What we hope we showed is that we have done a lot of work to really get up to speed and learn about the community and kind of dive into these issues. But in order to really better understand the issues, we need to talk with you to understand, are these correct? Is this kind of an accurate portrayal of what is happening in Riverhead today? Or are there other issues that we really should be focusing on? Again, as I mentioned before, we will kind of post a summary report of our prior work to the website within, I would say, the next week or so, as well as a recording of this meeting and a summary of the workshop. So the plan for now is really to stop talking and listen to you all. So we are going to break up into roundtable discussions. We have 7 tables around the theater, which I'll get to in a second. The key thing is this: we actually have a kind of a deadline where we need to. There's an act coming on tonight. So if anyone here wants to see a Queen cover and that's happening here tonight, with the sound check is starting at roughly 12 o'clock. So we need to be efficient. Typically, we give you time to kind of wander around and get some coffee and some food. We don't have the luxury today. So if everyone could be efficient, it would be appreciated. So we have, actually just says 6, but we have 7 roundtable discussions. and one person from each of our team will be at each of those tables to take notes to help to moderate the discussion. And then after that, we'll have a report back session. And so one of the tables is in the back of the room to the, I guess, stage right, back there. One's back there. There's one in the lobby, so which is not shown on this map. So there's one kind of in this area here. There was supposed to be one on the stage, but as you can see, we can't use the stage. So that one's going to be over here. And then on the balcony level, there are 3 different tables set up on the balcony, and there's one in the upstairs bar. So essentially, we can accommodate half of the people downstairs, and half of the people will have to go upstairs. What we'll be talking about is, first we want everyone to go around, introduce yourself, talk about what your priorities for the short term and for the long term, what issues are most important, and then also we want to kind of understand, you can tell us, what we can better do to get the word out, or at least engage the community for this event, as well as other town events, and get people involved in the planning process. So with that, also really quick, I just wanted to thank, before I forget, I just want to thank the Suffolk Theater, Gary, very helpful, and Clutch, and all of those at the theater. It was a great space to work from, so I just want to make sure that we're going to do that. Yes. Yes, so there'll be one presenter from each table, which will probably be the moderator. Okay, so if everyone could try and find a table, we'll try to move quickly, and we'll continue in the other discussion.
We have to be super careful. 30. Well, this is the one
of the meeting budget.
This is
Okay. Yeah, this is Riverhead Town.
How are you? Good. So this is like the south. Yeah, well, there's no way.
Okay,
Yeah, Main Street. Yeah.
Phil, sit down and come on in.
Now, what's this?
You guys want to join? Thanks for joining. Maybe we can just go around for starters and introduce ourselves and maybe say who you are and what your top priority is for the comprehensive plan, and in the short term and the long term, and then after that we'll kind of start to talk about other stuff. But my name is Noah. My top priority is to finish the plan and to give you a plan that you can be proud of.
Sure. I'm Larry Oxman, East End Commercial Real Estate. Been very active in the planning stage. I was very active in the 2003 comprehensive update, so I'm curious to see how this is going to go measured against the goals of that 2003, what we haven't hit, and how to adjust for the future.
Right. Okay.
Hi, my name is Isabella Thomas.
If what is?
Whoever was up there on the stage is going to be sitting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I know.
That's what we have to.
Yeah, no, I know that.
And then at the very end, when we get together, I think if there's a priority recommendation and we'd like someone to, we don't want ourselves, the consultant team does not want to be the speaker here. We'd like the reviews to say, hey, we came out of this table that's of critical importance to this table. And that's pretty much it. The reason we have to end about 11:30 is the management here has told us we just have to be out by noon. We didn't know that when we originally, but we do have to be out by noon. Apparently that will ban from it. There's some, yeah. So with that, that's the introduction. Now, if somebody, you want to take the notes, and
I don't know if you can read my handwriting, but I'll try.
all right, maybe.
We'll amend what we do, and it will take place. So that's we're not here to answer questions. If I can, I'll give you whatever insight that I have. Transportation is not medical, but I'm serving as a note taker. So that's a good idea. So that's one. I guess if we want to do it that way, we could do, introduction and your and your concern at the same time. So keep on going. Go ahead.
I told you, Ted, that I was right. You used to Alan's growing, up in Jamesport. I'm not sure, I have a bunch of things. I'm going to pass on that.
Right now, we're marching down a path that is not aligned with that vision. So whatever the vision, and the vision from the last comprehensive plan, if you read it, I don't know how many people have actually read that vision, it makes sense. But the actions are not aligned with that vision, especially when it comes to these distributions. And I worked in the logistics industry, all right? I know what these facilities could do to the surrounding area. And there is not an industry that I can think of that will do more damage to the surrounding area than the logistics, distribution, warehousing industry. The traffic that will generate is incomprehensible to anybody who has not been in that industry. And the number of projects that are surrounded in a 2-mile stretch of Calverton is, to me, is absolutely mind-boggling. So I'm glad that the comprehensive plan is going to start looking at addressing that. But my biggest fear that 14 months from now, we're going to be too far gone to make any type of improvements. So I don't want to take up too much time with everybody else here. I am a resident of Calverton. I've lived in Calverton for 17 years. And I'm actually not too far away. Okay. No, I am not a consultant. I'm not running for office, and I'm not a developer.
And me too, I live down the block from him. So.
Ted and I are neighbors, and we live not too far from where this North Point facility, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. So that's something.
We're in Foxwoods.
You're in
Oh, okay,
Foxwoods?
right, so we're right around the corner on Nicholas.
All right, so I notated that. Is there anything else?
I'm concerned about the traffic.
Where?
Huh? Well, the traffic, mainly on the Sound Road, Sound Avenue. I live off of Sound Road. And we're right at the extremity. We're just right at the limit. In fact, the town, Boardtown, Rivertown, and Brookhaven Town is almost right across my property. But so we're sometimes the forgotten people of Riverhead Town. But if you look at Sound Avenue, the traffic, I mean, is mostly because of the further east end. And you can make a study of traffic now, but how do you prepare for the future? I mean, the east end and North Fork is really growing rapidly. And these plans that you have for traffic, they may be obsolete in 2 years. How do you keep adjusting for that?
I totally agree with you. And you have people that want Sound Avenue to be 1 lane each direction. Understood. I don't know what that's going to look like in 15 years. And I've been there where, from Wading River all the way to Mattatuck, where it's an hour and a half.
Especially in the fall.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the end of Sound Avenue, starting at Wading River. When we did the choke points, it really helped out. The problem is, choke points were when you were heading east, you were making a left into Harv's, we created a middle lane that would queue up roughly 15 cars. The problem is that we did not coordinate with Southold Police, who were directing traffic at Harv's Farm in Mattatuck. And that created its own set of issues. That's going to clog it up. The width of Sound Avenue, we've looked into that. When it's possible to put in some turning lanes. It's really people heading east that need to turn off to the north. You're heading east and you're going to a farm that's on the south side, you're just pulling right in. You're not really obstructing the traffic too much at all.
That was one of the things that they mentioned in the presentation, was it not?
They mentioned that residents were against the turning lane. Frankly, I don't see what a turning lane will affect it that much.
It's a matter of, I don't think it's going to affect it that much.
I think his point
it would help, but I don't think it would affect the rural character.
Right. I think that's what the kid. There's so many meetings scheduled at 6 o'clock. I don't understand why that time is picked.
You got too late or too early?
It's dinner.
For what it's worth, I agree. I mean, I I hate being here on Saturdays, but,
No, I
but
mean-
I hate 6 o'clock at night. And look,
A lot of big trees.
the meetings that we had a dozen people, 16, 18 people, 20 people, right? You were at every single one of them. Right? There's 100 people here. You know, that's something you learn from. Right?
When we come, we try to come.
Yep. Yeah, I was actually impressed.
Focus. Second, in addition to the downtown development, is also recycling and renewables. Very interested in what's going to happen when the located dump does end. I know there are a lot of different plans for what can happen with different resources. There are ideas about the anaerobic. That I have sounds great in one respect, and I have some concerns in another. So those types of recycling. And lastly, I agree. I'm very concerned about the offshore wind turbines. I really think there should be a lot more study with regard to those as to marine biology, what's happening with the whales. I don't think that's common sense that so many are teaching. And I don't know what that oil does from those turbines, from the wind, solar, the offshore wind turbines, what that does to the environment. So those are my key concerns.
Okay, very good. And I don't even have to tell our note taker what, right? She knows CPAS better than I.
Just zipping right along here. So I'll be very short and sweet. I also have concerned about those wind turbines. And then my concern is Middle Road with the warehouses that they're talking about building, these big humongous things. And again, the traffic, the trucks, I mean, it's hard enough navigating through there. That's a big concern. The air quality with all that coming through. It's just going to take so much charm away from why people like it out there. It's my concern.
I have a feeling you have a few things.
No, I just have concerns about the residential development. I think your presentation proved that Riverhead has provided more than its fair share of affordable housing in Suffolk County. And I'm not for income apartments in the downtown area. I think they should be market rate. And we have aging infrastructure. You know, water, sewer, those systems are all old, and now you're bringing in all these new residents and the impact on the school district. I'm wondering if our volunteer departments can handle the new capacity that, especially with the population increase. And then FCAL, I'm always looking to see what's going on over there. I'm very excited about that place being developed. I remember when Grumman left town many years ago, I had lots of friends and families that worked there, and it was devastating to the town.
Hi. So I have two hats. So my hat I'll talk from today is I'm the civic president for Calverton. And so some of my concerns are already up on the board. One that's not is something you brought up earlier today on widening Sound Avenue and how that was went over like a lead balloon. So will widening the Middle Country Road to accommodate new industry. The answer to new industry is not to change our character, but it is to work with what we have. And speaking about that specifically in Calverton, the industrial zoning along Middle Country Road, excuse me, is very concerning because number one, it takes away from the character, but number two, the traffic that's already there, we're changing that intersection to accommodate that traffic. From what I looked at from the plans, it's not going to accommodate the type of delivery and goods and services that are coming into Riverhead to those industries that have warehouses. And the High Cube warehouse idea that's already been brought up, there's only one project right now that's known for that, and that's the North Point Logistics Center. But we have 130 acres of subdivision immediately west of Splish Splash that runs from Middle Country Road down to River Road, broken into a little over an acre, 4-acre parcels. That's going to be an industrial use of some kind. That needs to be, I'd like to know, we don't have any site plans known, but we need to keep that in our minds as we're looking at what the zoning should be. And then finally, EPCAL, that's where the industrial stuff's supposed to be. however, 10 million square feet of warehousing, I'll just go ahead and say it. It's unacceptable on many levels. So that's it.
Hi, my name is Karen Kemp and I live in Timber Park. And a big issue is what's happening in EPCAL and this proposal for a cargo airport, which living in Timber Park, I'm pretty close to it. But everybody's going to be affected by it, even outside of Riverhead. So the idea of a cargo airport is like obscene, you know, it's awful. And it's also against the odds of preservation of open space and preserving the quality of life out here. And our home values are all going to plummet. Yeah, it's obvious. And then the other thing is about the Riverhead Logistics Center. That's being planned in a residential neighborhood. You got homes on either side, and warehouses do not create jobs.
Not the career jobs that we're looking to increase.
They're low income.
And
in your presentation, you wanted to create higher end jobs. So,
and
warehouses go against that.
And as a tag along to that, those jobs we'd like to go to, Riverheadians, not accommodating the workforce of Western Suffolk and Nassau having a job out here. You showed us that ratio, you said it was quite good. Let's make it better.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm very interested in the issue of open space and as it relates to zoning. I think zoning is the overarching issue. I'm certainly aligned with talking with Karen about the warehousing and EPCAL as a cargo center and airport and its impact. Transportation also. How this becomes the end of the line for the expressway and all of the other roadways. I'm very concerned that growth is just going to continue, as we see in Western, is just going to continue in
Prior consultant was saying that the projected population growth is going to. They just want to watch those projections are, especially if you have all that development.
Parking, free, preferably free parking. Yeah. And Patchogue is, it's a good example. Patchogue is, they're struggling with their parking now because they encourage the development. They have sewage treatment. So do you. They have a lot of wet uses downtown. Limitless, really, because Suffolk County Health doesn't get involved because you have a sewage treatment plant. But, be careful what you wish for. Right?
In Riverside.
Okay, so.
I'm Sid Bale. I'm president of Wading River Civic Association, and I'm on the steering committee for the comp plan update. I'm supposedly the community liaison, and it's really interesting to hear some of the concerns from Riverhead, a resident, et cetera, and also from Jamesport, area. I was on the comp plan in 2003, and that was an interesting experience. And we thought we had solved a lot of things, but it's 20 years later and things have changed. And my concern with the issues facing us right now is basically I realized we're going to have more development in the town of Riverhead. But there's also the concern for the quality of life, the things that we all love about, living in Riverhead, and whether the two things will be compatible, mutually compatible, all right? And, you can't stop development, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think, though, my concern is we're at a tipping point that development has the potential to really cause a significant decline in the quality of life that we all seem to admire about living in this particular area. And that's a difficult issue. And in the summary, they addressed a lot of these issues. So. But trying to be optimistic about this whole thing, right? And I think we all are, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Yeah. All right, that's basically it.
Sarah Zito of Baiting Hollow. I understand that the comprehensive plan is aspirational. But I think that one of the unique things about Riverhead as a town is that it has these major components to it that are quite diverse and not well interconnected. So when I hear the information about development and the possibility of these warehouses and so forth, and I counterbalance that with the beautiful agricultural community we have, the historic Sound Avenue, the 58, downtown Riverhead. I think the greatest challenge is to understand what quality of life means in each of those regions. And I don't have the answers for that, but I think it's from my standpoint of living in a beautiful place, and I chose to live here because of where we are. I can appreciate that this issue of quality of life is almost something that needs to be delved into quite deeply to understand how to preserve the quality of life in downtown, in Calverton, and at the EPCAL area. For all the people that live here and enjoy this, how do we go forward and reap the economic benefits of development while addressing each community in its own unique way?
Can I just add one thing? She mentioned the biggest single concern or threat to quality of life that I see in the town right now is development inside the fence at EPCAL. That can go really very, very wrong, all right, and overwhelm, I think, the quality of life, not just for a resident of Wading River or Baiting Hollow, but town-wide, the implications, everything from housing, traffic, transportation, obviously, right, et cetera. So I'm sorry to...
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's kind of the idea. Once we go around the table, that's the exact kind of interchange we want to have, right? But I'm really surprised we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before we got to EPCAL.
Yeah.
It's 3,000 acres of basically undeveloped property. Right. Sitting out there. 7, right? Because you went before.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
And you even forgot the first time through. It's a good point, though. It's a big deal. It's also a big opportunity, but it's been sitting there since '95 as a big opportunity, right?
Yes.
Right. There was conjecture. Some guys came and actually began an environmental study to put NASCAR on the EPCAL property once in '96 or '97. Right? Went away. They went away. Right? The ski mountain.
The ski mountain. Right.
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 And the sandy.
But they provided $6 million to the town. The ski mountain that never happened.
That's right. There was a way to just keep that going.
That's
keep on fleecing.
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to reiterate what everybody else said because I kind of agree with so much that was said. I just want to make sure the study looks really careful at the traffic issue again. And the reason I'm bringing it up, it was so good to hear that they're going to fix the one intersection in Edwards Avenue, but there are many more that are almost as bad as that intersection. And we live down on Edwards Avenue and drive up in that area every day. And there are some dangerous intersections, and they need to be looked at. They really need to be. And the more the development, it has to be addressed. It almost needs to be addressed first before we do something, and then have to figure out what to do with the intersections we never considered, or other road issues.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of how it happens, though. You know, that's the. You don't really look at the lack of capacity on a spot basis, on an intersection by intersection basis, until it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's.
There are.
Once the whole area gets developed, in essence, anything west, it was what I was saying the other day, that anything, in essence, we're splitting Riverhead in half, because the people who live in Calverton and Wading River will never see them again, because they're just not going to come east, and we're not going to go west or go into that area.
Will that help the traffic on Sound Avenue?
No.
It'll stop the people coming? Because the Jamesport people might like that.
I'm on Country Boulevard. I had people trying to follow me into my driveway because they
There's a shortcut.
There's a road. I was like, okay, do you have a canoe on the top of your car? Because that's the only way you're getting to Greenport. It is awful. It is absolutely awful what happens. And I understand it. It's
So
tourism.
would you rather sit in traffic or not have trees on Sound
I
Avenue?
don't leave my house.
So do you not want it? So these are the challenges, right? For them, is like, you want to have 2 lanes, and then no one will complain about traffic, but how do you do that?
They had to open up a substation for the ambulance out in Jamesport, and a house burned down because they could, and I'm talking 1 mile away from the firehouse. The firemen couldn't get to the firehouse because the traffic, they couldn't get across the road.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to the fire department and
Ambulance
as well.
too, that's a separate, yeah, I remember when
Yeah, we will have a meeting with them to understand what their issues, what they're seeing.
And also with the electric vehicles, you want to know, can the firemen handle what they do, you know, what training, what else do they need? And our bike paths are terrible.
They really are.
They have them on Peconic Bay Boulevard. If you go, you're talking maybe 6 inches some places. There is nowhere to go, and there's sand and all of them. How can you put people through that? That's not a safe bike path.
And to try and claim extra land that the town already owns as a right-of-way. I mean, people have mailboxes, their prize shrubs, their driveways. I mean, that would be a nice way to expand for bike lanes, but I don't see how you can do it.
Increasing road capacity isn't the answer either. You look what they did with Sunrise Highway. Originally it was just 2 lanes, and they made it bigger and bigger. Just trucking, just expressway.
Types of things that we need to work with them. We passed a shopping cart law, right, where you cannot, everything, the shopping carts, it's like a dog fence around the parking area. So, because we're picking up, so when you wheel your shopping cart, if you go to a certain distance out of the parking lot, you can't go.
It happens at ShopRite.
Right. So we're doing that because we're picking up between 18 to 20 carts a month all over the place. Coalition of the Homeless was berserk on us, saying that we're being discriminatory. We're not taking anybody's shopping cart that's loaded up with clothing. We're taking vacant carts that
You see 'em
just
all over.
all over, right? And taxpayers shouldn't be paying for that at all. Not only that, you're paying it for twofold. You're paying the highway department to pick it up, but you're also paying the supermarkets they come from, because to them it's shrinkage. They just increase the price of their goods to you to take, because that's considered shrinkage. The guy runs a great Hispanic market on West Main Street. He's got great avocados in there. I get a chance to go over there. He's totally for it. I forget how many shopping carts were stolen from him this year. I feel like
No, it's on Main Street.
on West Main Street on the west side. He had so many. The shopping carts are roughly $400 to $600 a piece.
Oh my God.
Now, I don't know about the plastic ones, but that's the range. And you're going to pay for it. Everybody pays for shrinkage normally. They go into Tanger and go like this with racks. Open their arms, go like this, squeeze, and go.
I know the supermarkets in the town, maybe just the village of Southampton, have employees that go around with pickup trucks and collect their carts. I don't know if that's a law, if it's mandated, or if they do that just because they want their carts
This is
back.
Southampton?
Yes.
I'm just saying, I'm sure if any supermarket knew there were several cars, they would have to get them, just as you said, if they cost $400 or $500 each.
But they don't
Take a drive around and find them.
And I have to say this, I mean, we have a litter committee. Southampton's budget is like, they have
For
people
sure.
on staff, yeah, they have people that work for the town that go around picking up garbage. We have volunteers, and we have some people in highway that do it, but
Have you ever considered nonviolent inmates be given the job of cleaning up the litter? Where I used to live, that's what they did.
yeah,
in the South.
I see that on the highway. Yeah, and I don't know if they do that because it's a county jail and they're county roads and the county, and I see them on
That I
state
don't know.
roads. Like, we can't touch county roads, we can't touch state roads, we can't even clean them up. We can only clean up.
Regarding Mr. Jeffries, I didn't know that was open to the public until after the fact. I didn't know that the this committee to advise the comp plan, the steering committee, that was open to the public. Didn't know it until after.
Yeah, I was like,
I drive by there every day, and I'm like, how are they gonna have this?
What we're talking about, traffic control and safety. And that is not looking at that, that's looking at money and
And they're
income
talking about making
taxes.
an exit from there onto 58, right next to where the right-hand turn lane is, onto 58, if you can picture that. So we'll be turning right onto 58, as people will be coming out of that parking lot. You want to talk about accidents happening? There'll be one every 5 minutes, you know? I mean, that's insane. So we don't need 4 more fast food restaurants.
Dunkin' Donuts, we already have Dunkin' Donuts. One of them is Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. We designate roads for bike riders, friendly for bike riders. I ride a bike. I ride along Middle Road, and I can't tell you, when those huge trucks come by me on Middle Road, supposedly against all ordinances. 3 of them come by, you know when a heavy truck comes by a car, how it shakes on a highway? Well, you should see what happens to me, and there's no shoulder left on Middle Road. It's dangerous.
Middle Road is wearing away on the sides. Nobody has ever opened it up or cleaned it or fixed the edges of the road forever. Mill Road is another disaster. They don't have the shoulders on the road anymore because they've allowed all those communities to not clean the edge, not maintain anything. So we have a lot of problems that have nothing to do necessarily just with zoning, but with ordinance.
And it's very expensive for many parents are actually throwing their children for that reason.
Is there anything new on the warehouse
afford
at
it.
the basement at the
6,000
end
to
of
7,000 a month.
Manor and Middle? Amazon
Doesn't
built
pencil.
39 acres. With 641,000 square foot, 5 stories full. Anything new on that?
I told
Or
my
is it still
kids,
basically
make plans.
hold where they may still build
I
the
don't know
warehouse?
the exact status, but we'll look into that. We're looking into it. I can't give you an answer on the exact status.
So, because I know the one next to Tractor Supply, that's on hold right now, according to the town board meeting I went to. So that one still may go through. There's a lot of trucks that go already now from Coastal and from Suffolk Cement that are heavy-duty trucks back and forth. And right now, the trucks from Coastal, they park 2 and 3 in a row on the regular road, on Toomey Avenue. So I'm concerned about that aspect going in for more and more trucks from Amazon, because Amazon's a fairly good company. And if they build a 5-story building, 641,000 square feet, we're using 30 acres or 36 acres of the 39 acres. I know I heard also that they want to make access to the road to the expressway.
That's why it's got to go in the
That's
industrial
not
park.
happening. That's not happening. We already had the meetings with them and with the state DOT. They're not coming onto the expressway for an exit.
Okay, but they still can build it. They still may build
They
their...
have to come out onto Manor Road.
Right, the Manor Road. Manor Road right now is congested between Suffolk Cement, Coastal Pipeline, and any of the trucks that go back around and even past
I
your
live right on the block. I'm very familiar with it. So that's
I live
why.
on Manor Road.
So that's why I'm saying that, like, the traffic study is what has to happen when it comes to that big development to make sure that they are widening the road or that they are doing a separate frontage road onto Manor Road that they have to use that's separate from what the residents are using.
Why didn't they use the industrial park for that big facility?
Because they own property. They own the property.
But that's what an industrial park is for.
They own the property and zone for it, which is why this is an important property. Because that would be like you
It's adjacent to a residential.
Not just federal officials, it's gonna have to be state and federal officials. And, you know, Eastern Long Island is filled with people who have an interest in their properties. They have multi-million-dollar properties. You show that this impact of this, whatever's happening here, is going to impact their property values.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you're dead right.
Yeah.
But how many people in this table, this is not a representative sample, how many people in this table were aware until today that we're talking about 35,000 truck trips a day? And that's us. We don't even know.
I think that we have to be careful of smoke and mirrors, and I know I could be completely wrong.
Wait 1 second. Okay. So if everyone comes down, we're going to have one person from every group report back what was said. We hope that we capture the comments. I know in my group there was a very healthy discussion. We'll go kind of one by one and just provide a very quick overview. Very quickly, if those of you, some people asked questions about where you can find more information. As I mentioned before, there is a website. It can be accessed from the Town of Riverhead's website, but it's Town of Riverhead CompPlanUpdate, I believe.com. We will send out an update to those of you that signed in. We can just send out a link to the website as well as to the summary report. There's also a link to make comments if you have those. Some people asked about that. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Andy, who's going to recap what was discussed at his table. So Andy?
Thank you. We're challenging every speaker to be less than 2 minutes. So Andy's a lawyer. This is going to be a very, very big test.
And then wait, another thing, sorry, Andy. Just, if something was mentioned before by another group, you can just say this was mentioned, we also talked about it, so we don't necessarily need to rehash everything. Sorry.
So I welcome the challenge, and here we go. I'm representing the table that was on the first floor over in the left corner. Executive summary. We are extremely concerned about the quality of life in this town, about the pace of development, the lack of transparency, and the lack of information to the community. Environmental is a big deal. FCAL is a particularly big deal because of the simple physics. Besides a jet cargo airport that is almost certainly going to be passed this October with the support of the town as co-applicant, 10 million square feet of warehouse space would make it one of the largest warehouse complexes in the world. According to national traffic safety statistics, we could expect 35,000 daily truck trips to be generated from this facility. The comprehensive master plan talks about infrastructure improvements, if you can call it that, along Route 25. Frank has been very decent and is a real pro, who's standing next to me, has said that the slide should have also included that the zoning is going to be looked at FCAL as part of the master plan. Various people at our table, am I speaking fast enough? Various people at our table pointed out that the timelines are all wrong here, that the master plan is not going to be finished before FCAL is approved. And I pointed out, and I'm speaking now as me, I'm not looking for a comprehensive plan that is a eulogy. I'm looking for a comprehensive plan that can be a proactive tool in making our lives better. That's it? That's it.
Well, hey, that is an attorney making a summation in 2 minutes. So who's next?
There's a bunch. Do you mind? Yeah. You want me to hold this? Okay, I'm going to try and, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it in 2 minutes, but I will do my best. We talked about crime issues downtown. Also that police obviously has a lot to do with that, and that it sounds like there have been a lot of positive improvements with the police and then kind of getting involved with youth downtown through sports leagues and so on. So that's something that's been a positive and should be encouraged. We talked a lot about EPCAL as well, traffic issues and the need for an alternative route to the LIE from EPCAL, particularly if, obviously if major development happens. This idea has been discussed in the past. Recognize that there are some issues with DDC and the Pine Barrens, those areas that road would have to cut through, but we will, we should look into that. We talked about battery energy storage systems, BESS. And where it's located. There was this kind of some issues about it being located in or adjacent to residential areas. So we talked about that and kind of concern of that proximity. So that is something that the town is working on and has done some work before to kind of address the proper locations. We talked about the Peconic Bay and the loss of access, particularly with some new developments to the bay. Also, runoff, environmental issues having to do with the bay. A lot of people, whether it has to do with fertilizer or using gas-powered lawnmowers and so on, all that stuff kind of runs off in the trash into the bay and into the river. So that came up on another, a bunch of comments. We talked about new development and the fact that there's, seems to be no personality or iconic kind of design, so there's a need for improved design standards for some of the new development. This was highlighted that we need more meetings with farmers in the farming community. They are an essential part of the community. Historically, it's an agricultural community, not an industrial community, so we do need to meet with them to understand what their needs are. Okay, page one. All right, again, Peconic River, the water quality, we talked about the possibility for rain barrels and compost bins. There's also a need to educate children, teach them by example so that they can kind of improve and helps to keep our community an environmentally more conscious place. The question is, why are we using farmland for solar and not roofs? Can we use more of the big box stores for solar? And there will be an opportunity if new development happens at EPCAL. Solar should be required. We talked about the vision for the plan, that there isn't a unifying vision. Hopefully that's something that we will do as part of this process. And then infrastructure should be addressed to support what that vision is. TDR was discussed. This is critical to fix TDR, to keep farmers here. Protect agricultural resources and more organic farming. Thank you.
That was 2 minutes.
I know, sorry. I'm not doing as well. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about the need for perhaps mixed use on 25, which would maybe provide an opportunity for some housing that could support agricultural uses, so housing for the farmers. Sound Avenue is a historic corridor. We talked about the fact that businesses should have an agricultural component. There's a concern about development of warehouses on Sound Ave. Truck traffic again, we talked about truck traffic a lot. Traffic also is an issue that Riverhead is a gateway to North Fork, and in some ways traffic is an issue here, but also is better than other communities because they can get on and off the LIE, so it really is kind of an advantage for the community. We talked about traffic on 58 and the need for feeder roads to help provide access. That vertical farms, if they happen, should be environmentally and conscious, such as having LEED standards. We talked about universal design standards, so not just ADA, but advanced standards to make sure that apartments are accessible and really address the aging population. As we know, the population is aging, and it's more expensive to retrofit buildings rather than build them with those standards in place. So address those codes, address and improve upon accessory dwelling units. So I went through that very quickly. There were extensive discussions, but we will record all of those conversations in our summary report. Who's next? Vin.
You want to go in? Yeah.
Okay. I'll hold it for now. Okay.
No, hold it. I don't have as much writing on mine, but zoning is something that everybody at the table spoke about, and there was particular focus on using zoning as a control, not a prevention of development and the type of development that should take place and would reflect the desired quality of life for the people in Riverhead. I think that's been a theme. EPCAL was brought up kind of late in the discussion, but then it got a lot of discussion, and how it's kind of this time bomb sitting out there that is ready to that can have huge implications on what happens in the rest of the town and its impact on the rest of the town. Early in our discussion, we talked about how good the turnout was for this meeting and how relatively sparse it was for the series of meetings that we did over the last several years, and that was the group's consensus was a lack of communication about the meetings, but also when they took place and when and where they took place, which we have heard prior to this. We talked about accessibility and affordability of medical care, particularly for unhoused population and for substance abuse. Sound Avenue, the consensus on Sound Avenue is basically to manage the traffic and to leave the infrastructure alone, with the exception of just maybe doing some controls at intersections and trouble spots during the summertime, during peak tourism time. I know that was a big deal when we first last year talked about some potential improvement on Sound Avenue. This seems to be the consensus of my group. I don't know how that's going to play with the rest of the town. Traffic in general, we spoke about trouble spots and how long it takes to address trouble spot. It was brought up that the improvement at the intersection of 25 and Edwards Avenue has been kicked around for 20 years, and now it's only just starting at the end of this year. Construction's only starting at the end of this year, and what are the obstacles to addressing other trouble spots in the town of Riverhead? So, I don't know how I did, but I'm done.
You did well.
Let's bring in an easel over so that we don't have to.
Okay, yeah, hold. Emily, you up? Yeah, follow this.
John is gonna come up here.
Oh, okay. Just introduce yourself.
I missed the part about getting somebody else to do that.
I'll take it over here.
Yeah, why don't you get the camera?
Sure. Did I actually that turn? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, that's right. I got it.
Good. Thank you. I'm John from Riverhead. We had concerns, the census and map lines, I think specifically with Jamesport as it relates to Aquabog. We want defined zoning rules, not just guidelines. Infrastructure that keeps up with development. The school overcrowding was a concern. Increased traffic, semi-trucks going in and out of Sound Avenue. When the Strong Marina project gets rolling, you know, what kind of a problem is that going to be? Trucks coming over on the Orient Ferry, you know, that will continue to come right through Riverhead. Medium density residential development, home ownership opportunities, and uses allowed based on zoning can be, you know, restrictive. That is basically what, there we go. Industrial development is a major concern, and again, you know, the proper zoning for that. We need other modes of transportation. You know, I know we need the MTA to step up. I mean, they talk about how they've, you know, spent enough money on Suffolk County. Well, you know, not really. The town plan is looking to do to bring diversity to this process, specifically, in particular, the Hispanic population. We need more partnering. I brought this up tonight. We're going to have a great band here at Suffolk Theater, and they're going to have one in Patchogue as well. But when you go to Patchogue, you get an email talking about all the great restaurants in Patchogue. And they offer all kinds of discounts, and probably half the people that go to the show in Patchogue will spend money in Patchogue that night, and maybe 10% of the people that come here will. We need to address that, and that's something that can be done now. And that just gets back to communication. As it respect, you know, in respect to telling people what we have now in respect to communicating with our Hispanic population. And the third sheet is blank. Thank you very much. Personal note, I can't wait to lace up my skates.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone in my group who were upstairs at the bar. No connection there. I want to thank everyone because everyone participated. Well, I think we have the most notes. We have 3 pages, so I'm not going to read everything. A lot of the same comments on zoning, using zoning to control future development with a lot of, potential development or parcels available for development in the town. We had the same comments about EPCAL, among other things, because they've already been talked about. Some comments about the Riverhead Logistics Center and the traffic impact from that. Industrial development along Middle Road. Again, traffic safety and air quality associated with that. There's a need for market rate apartments in downtown. The feeling that there is a lot of affordable housing here already. We need to work within the existing character and infrastructure for new development rather than changing those things to accommodate the developments. EPCAL I mentioned, open space and zoning, don't let growth overwhelm the remaining open space. And we need to find a balance in careful and thoughtful development, particularly downtown, in the downtown area. Sound Avenue traffic also mentioned, and how about the positives of the community? Joanne from the planning board asked for some input about positives, and we got a good amount of stuff. It's a beautiful place to live here and visit, so we want to maintain some of that. Okay, that's it for me.
Come on up.
Thank you. Hi folks, my name is Janice Shearer. I'm from Calverton, and my group I would like to thank as well. Everybody participated, and the comments here are mostly about very similar of what everyone else has already said, but that the master plan needs to address all the new uses since it's 20 years old, such as these logistic facilities, fuel cells, battery storage, and the potential for new things that we, want to encourage and those things that we want to not encourage. The biggest concern is that there's millions of square feet coming to a rural area, and that could have the potential to change the character forever. And we want to understand how the capacity to handle all of this, who does it service, how much of it is for Riverhead, how much of it is for everywhere else. So what is it that we need right now versus everyone? Then, what is the growth demand associated with these developments? Because people are going to work there and then they're going to want to live here, and we already have these demands. The consensus of the group that I was sitting with said that approving the developments while this plan is ongoing feels like a waste of time. Like they all are unanimously supportive of a moratorium to some degree in these issues. The biggest concerns about especially the warehousing has to do with the noise, the air pollution, water recharge, ozone levels this is Earth Day and we're talking about this, and so we should really take that seriously. Air quality standards are a major issue. My group also was concerned about urbanizing intersections, that's not really the goal. The goal should be to keep this an agricultural community that feels rural in as much as it can. We have a lot going on over by Manor Road. As everyone knows, the concrete place now is possibly for sale, the subdivision at Splish Splash. It would be nice to have an overall view of what all this looks like cumulatively. And the creek down 25 all the way to EPCAL. How is that going to be stopped or mitigated? shielding of vistas was a concern, you know, not putting trees and walling us off and being able to see the beautiful agricultural lands, that everyone also had positives to say, that we love the farms and we love the vineyards and we love the horses and the feeling that you're in the country, and it's just the whole idea is to keep it feeling like that. There was concerns in my group about more civic feedback, more use of Channel 22, more outreach to the diverse populations, engaging them. Another comment that was made was about the planned fast food where Long Island cauliflower is, and you know, that creates some kind of traffic conflict, and you know, there was a lot of consternation about that when it happened because, you know, we just sort of keep putting things on and on and on, and the concern is that where does it stop? Sorry, I'm trying to go fast. Fast food. Middle road trucks impact bike safety. Mill Road, no shoulders. Tree clearing was an issue for new construction, you know, and the old way of doing business, which is clearing an entire site like Costco, should not be permitted. It should be more about, you know, where are you putting the development and then preserving certain aspects of the property. Creating a better open space network. A comment was made that even Sandy Pond Golf Course took down trees, and people are worried that there's not enough penalties and enforcement. And that goes hand in hand with any zoning rules that you put in place. There was a comment that there should be special outreach to farmers with a separate forum. No public giveaways in terms of downtown to a hotel or the science center or anything like that. If we bought it, there should be a proper lease back, and the public should be made whole on anything related to that. And just, you know, battery storage and fire safety. And definitely more information, scrolling meeting dates, what's open to the public. And someone also brought up the point of having more quiet zones, the truck traffic and noise for the senior communities would be appreciated, you know, like not diverting these trucks. I made the point at my house, there, you know, I live right by that curve on Youngs Avenue, and people barrel through my residential street because these trucks can't get around that curve, you know, so it's like a shortcut. And that's not, you know, that's not good. So, a lot more comments. I think everybody just wants what they kind of already have and made better. Not, you know, just sort of chip away until you don't recognize your place. So, thank you.
Yeah, just real quick.
Let me just say something. Okay, so everyone, I think that's it, right? Everyone, thank you so much. Just a couple of things. You know, I thought this was a really, really helpful for us to understand what the priorities are, where we should be moving forward. We hope this was kind of instructive for you. We just want to thank all of you, not just for your comments, but also doing it efficiently. We promised the Suffolk Theater we'd be out of here by 12, and I think we're like pretty much on task. We did hand out a number of flyers that have the link to the website as well as a place for comments. A lot of people, you know, ask me individually about certain things, and I apologize if I wasn't able to get to you because there's just a lot of things to do. But a lot of the comments were heard. We also do have the town board, the supervisor here, and members of the committee also here to hear all the things. So, you know, everything that was said was heard by multiple people. With that, I'm going to just pass it to the supervisor just for some final comments.
Yes, and again, thank you. It's great to see such a great crowd. I walked around on some of the workshops. I participated 2/3 of the time on one. It was very good. We hear you, and we share many of your concerns. So hopefully you're going to stay engaged, and we want to thank the Suffolk Theater for being part of our community and hosting this event.